We're back to the Neil Haley Show, and I'm excited about this interview because when you talk about immigration law, and we're going to break down an area in immigration law that I have no idea about. I just touched upon in a couple of broadcasts, but my guest today is Michael Ashoori of Ashoori Law. Michael, thanks for stopping by, and we're going to talk today as our topic's going to be E2. How are you today, Michael?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Neil. I'm very excited to be on your show. Very excited to dive into this aspect and this area of immigration law, which I'm very passionate about. So, looking forward to it.
All right, so let's break it down first of all. What is the basic overview of the E2 visa and how does it work?
Absolutely. So, the immigration law is vast. There are so many different ways that somebody could come to the United States, get a visa to work for their own business or work for another person's company, or you name it. There's so many different options out there. The E2 visa is one of these options that's designed for investors and entrepreneurs. And basically, it's a visa that allows somebody to invest in the United States. They can they can invest in a brand new startup company. So they can start their own company. They can purchase an existing company. It's very flexible in that regard. And based on investing in that company in the United States, they can come to the United States, live in the United States. They can bring their spouse, they can bring their children, and they can essentially operate their business in the US. So this is like an entrepreneurial visa. It allows somebody to invest in their business, come to the United States, and grow that business. That's the essential framework of the E2 visa. And you will get more into the process and the logistics of it, but that's like a general overview so far.
I love this. This is such an amazing, interesting topic as an entrepreneur myself. And especially if you're looking to collaborate with someone overseas and say, hey, I want to bring them over to the United States. They're a perfect part to partner with me in a specific business and things like that. That happens all the time, right, Michael? Where they're looking for somebody that's got unbelievable talent to increase the size or a new business idea and want to bring them over to the US.
Yeah, if somebody has a contact in the United States that already has a business and they are interested in joining them on and the foreign national that's planning on coming to the United States wants to join them in that existing business, or if they want to team up and do a new business together, there's ways to make all of these a reality. Very important to consult with an experienced immigration lawyer to work out the logistics of it. But yes, if there's somebody that has a successful business in the United States already and wants to basically join in somebody from outside of the United States to partner with them in that business, they can sell 50% of their business to that foreign national, and that foreign national, assuming the requirements are met, can join that business and they can grow it together. Or if somebody, or if they want to do a brand new business together, that's also a possibility.
Okay. What are the requirements to get a E2 visa?
Absolutely. So there's a number of requirements. I want to focus on some of the major ones. One is this visa is not available to just anybody. There are certain countries. You have to be a citizen of a country that has an E2 treaty with the United States. There are many countries that have this treaty. You have Canada, Mexico, many European countries. You have uh, Germany, France, the UK, and there's countries in Asia that qualify as well. There's a lot of countries that qualify, but there are certain major countries that do not qualify, such as China, Russia, Brazil. Those are some major countries that are not eligible for the E2 visas. Again, the first and most important criteria, the first requirement is that you must be a citizen of a country that has an E2 treaty with the United States. The second requirement is that you have to make a substantial investment in a US business. We were talking about this earlier. The regulations specify that the investment must be considered substantial. And there are various factors that determine whether or not an investment is substantial. Oftentimes, investors just want to know a dollar amount, and it's there's much more to it than this. But generally, in our experience, if the investor is investing at least $100,000 and under the right circumstances, that should be enough. We've had cases where investments for less than $100,000 have also gotten approved, but if we want to just simplify this whole thing, generally, if in under the right circumstances, an investment of $100,000 can qualify. Now, in addition to making a substantial investment, your investment must be put at risk. What that means is that some people think that you can just deposit money into your bank account and you can say that you made an investment. That's not true. The money has to be at risk, and one way to put the funds at risk is to actually spend the money. So deposit the money into your business bank account and actually spend it on things that your business needs, like insurance, marketing costs, building a website, getting furniture for your office, buying inventory, whatever it is. By doing that, you can demonstrate that the funds are put at risk. So, in addition to putting the funds at risk, your role with the company has to be to direct and develop the business. What that means is that if you're going to open up a coffee shop, you're not supposed to be the one that's making the lattes. Your role under this E2 visa is to direct and develop the business. And another requirement is that your funds must come from a lawful source. So immigration regulations don't want people to, bring in funds from any sort of illegal activity. So the funds have to be coming from some sort of a lawful source. What I mean by that is, for example, if you had some sort of lawful employment in your home country and you saved up earnings from that lawful employment, that can be an adequate lawful source of funds. Or if you sell a property and you generate the proceeds from the sale of that property and you use those funds as the basis of the investment. So those are some of the major requirements. One more, the business has to be an active for-profit business. So sometimes people want to just purchase a residential house and lease it out to a tenant and say that's going to be my business. No, the E2 visa is not for those kind of passive types of investments. It's more so designed for an active business, like if you're going to do a restaurant or some sort of a car mechanic shop. There's so many different options available to you for the E2 visa, but if you're thinking about just doing some sort of a very passive business, like I said, owning a home and renting it to a tenant, that doesn't qualify. So those are some of the main requirements for the E2 visa.
Wow, that's really a lot of information, but you wouldn't think about the specific things about it. You're kind of breaking really some things that are very important if you're going to come to the United States. You want to invest, you have to put skin in the game. You just can't come in here, say, I have a business idea and start like America with $1. It sounds like there's a lot more to it, except now other ways can get you there, as this next question talks about. Putting funds at risk can be a tough thing to do for some E2 investors. What are some strategies to reduce risks when putting funds at risk for the E2 visa?
Yeah, so you can imagine if you're an investor and you are interested in pursuing an E2 visa, it's really strange because there's this requirement that you have to put the funds at risk. You have to, in my earlier example, spend that money, but you're spending that money and you don't have any guarantee that you're going to get the visa. Because again, we'll get to this in a moment when we talk about the process of getting an E2 visa. You have to put the funds at risk before you get approved for the visa. So what happens if you make all this effort, you spend this money for your business, and the visa, God forbid, doesn't get approved? A lot of people are not comfortable with that idea. So the question is, how can an investor mitigate that risk, reduce that risk, and still pursue the E2 visa? Well, one option to do this is through the use of escrow. Just like when you buy a house, you put your funds into an escrow account, and the escrow arrangement, depending on the terms of that purchase and sale agreement, has various things that need to take place for the funds to transfer to the seller. So similarly, in the context of an E2 visa, particularly in the context of somebody, an E2 investor that's buying an existing business, they can negotiate with the seller of that business to enter into a escrow arrangement where the funds are first put into escrow and then the funds are to be transferred to the seller upon the condition that an E2 visa is issued to the buyer. So this has to be done with the supervision of an immigration attorney But one way to mitigate this at-risk requirement is through the creative and appropriate use of escrow. Again, I want to mention that it's very important that the use of escrow is handled properly and is done properly. But if it is done properly, the use of escrow can be one way to help mitigate risk. There can't be infinite conditions that in that escrow arrangement. Really, the sole condition of the escrow should be issuance of the E2 visa. And again, if that's done properly, then it can be one way to mitigate risk so that, God forbid, in the event that the visa wasn't issued, the funds could transfer back to the buyer and they're not in a situation where they've spent all this money and they can't operate the business.
And without the right proper immigration lawyer, mistakes can happen, can't they?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a very technical area of immigration law. As I was mentioning earlier in this video, immigration law is vast. You have attorneys in immigration law that handle asylum. You have immigration attorneys that handle family-based immigration. For example, if a married couple wants to get a green card that way, you have immigration lawyers that focus on getting green cards for people with extraordinary abilities. You have immigration lawyers for people that are getting a green card or a work visa based on having a job offer in the United States. And you also have this section of immigration law that's focused on investment-based immigration. And that covers largely E2 visas, which we're talking about right now. There's also another type of investor visa called an EB5 visa, which results in a green card. But these various aspects of these investment-based visas are very technical. They can be very complex, and it's very important to have a well-rounded technical understanding of how these visas work. And working with an experienced immigration lawyer in this regard is very key.
What are some common reasons why E2 visas get denied?
Absolutely. So there could be a number of reasons why there could be a number of reasons why these visas would get denied. I would say one reason why one of these applications would get denied is if the investment is not considered substantial. Like, so sometimes somebody will have an idea for a business and the startup costs are very low. Like, for example, let's say somebody wants to start up a tutoring company or some sort of a consulting business. Maybe they can get buy-in, maybe spend $5,000 to get their business all set up. And that's all they need. Technically, under their business model, they could work out of their apartment and they can get a $300 laptop and build a website for a few $100s and get up and running for a very low amount of investment. And under those circumstances, an immigration officer could say your investment was not substantial. So one reason for these visa denials is if after review by an immigration officer, it's considered that the investment is not substantial. Another basis for why one of these cases would get denied is if the business is considered marginal. This takes me earlier when we were talking about requirements. Another requirement is that the business cannot be marginal. Basically, with taking all the legalese out of it, a marginal business is essentially it's too small. It's only benefiting the E2 investor to provide like a minimal livelihood for that investor, but it's not really doing anything beyond that. So if the business is considered marginal, like too small, that's another reason why one of these cases would get denied. Another reason is if the person is too early. So in the context of a startup business, there's a lot of things that need to take place. Let's say somebody is planning on opening up a liquor store, and that means they need to rent the place, they need to build out the interior of the liquor store, they need to purchase the inventory, they need to get the necessary licenses, and so on. There's a lot of steps that need to take place to get that business to the point where it's either operating or it's on the verge of operating. So if somebody applies for their visa too early, let's say they didn't even get their lease yet, or the interior of the business is not built out yet. So when the person is going in for their visa interview, there's still so much left to be done before that business can operate. Then an immigration officer could deny that case because it's just too early. It's not ready. It's not already operating, nor is it on the verge of operating. So that's another reason why one of these cases could get denied.
All right, and that's got to be hard for people for sure, and that's why you need to hire someone like Michael that has the knowledge and has worked and is really focusing. So this is an area, this is really an area of expertise for you, is E2 then, isn't it?
Well, when you talk about expertise, there's various legal meanings to that, but I will say that at our firm, we are a full service immigration law firm. So we handle pretty much all aspects of family based immigration, which I was talking about earlier. We handle almost all aspects of business and investment based immigration as well, and employment based immigration. But among all these areas, one of our focal points is investment based visas, notably the E2 visa. So it is certainly a focal point of our practice. So, yes, we are very experienced in this regard.
What are some case studies, success stories of some E2 cases that you've worked on?
Sure. I mean, there's tons of, we've done so many E2 visa cases, but I will just pick a couple that stand out to me. One is there was an immigrant from Israel, and he identified a pizza restaurant that was for sale, and it had a great. I mean, at the time when he was looking at it, it seemed like a decent business opportunity, but he identified it, he purchased it. We proceeded with his E2 visa application. It got approved. He came to the United States, significantly improved that business, and now he's on his path of living the American dream. He's made the pizza restaurant far more profitable than when he originally took it over, and he's going to be acquiring more locations. And there's certain immigration things that we have to do from that standpoint. But it's awesome. He identified a business, purchased it, took it over, improved it, and he's doing really well. Another story that comes to mind is somebody that was very passionate about developing and building custom furniture, and he had a vision for this company that would design custom furniture, and it was a startup company. He started from the ground up, and again, an instance where an entrepreneur had a vision. We assisted him from the immigration standpoint. We regularly collaborated and developed a strategy in terms of where the investment was going to be made and those various aspects of the case. Again, it was another instance where the case was successfully approved and his business took off. And seeing these instances and these examples of people that are able to achieve tremendous success in the United States, it's, as you said, as an entrepreneur, you look at that and I'm sure it can be very uplifting. And certainly for us, it's very exciting to see
Yeah.
when that takes place with our clients.
I mean,
It's not always
absolutely. When you're getting to see that dream come true, that they created something that came here and they lived the American dream. That's got to feel great for you. And that's probably one of the reasons why you focus on that, is you see such an important missing component for people that want to get to America. They have a business idea and they just don't know how to put it together to get it all together to make sure that they can come to the US.
It's awesome to be able to assist with that immigration component of that entrepreneur's kind of dream. They identify the opportunity, they want to execute on it, and they want to actualize that opportunity. And it's just a pleasure to be able to assist from that immigration standpoint. It's awesome.
What else would you like to share about the E2 visa?
Okay, so I want to say that it's the E2 visa for the right candidate can be an amazing immigration option. But there's a lot of different immigration options. Sometimes, there could be an option that's much more suitable for you depending on your unique situation. It's hard to, pigeonhole everybody into one particular route. So when it comes to choosing, what immigration option is most suitable for you, there's a lot of factors to consider. So it's very important to consult with an immigration lawyer. So, you might find out that there's an option for you that doesn't necessarily require an investment, or you might determine that the E2 is the best option for you based on your goals. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you might be listening to this podcast and you might be saying to yourself, the E2 visa is great. That's perfect for me. If that's the case, wonderful. We'd be happy to discuss that with you further and to basically get you to a point where you're confirmed on that vision. But you might also find out that there's another option that could be better suited for you. So consult with an immigration lawyer. We would be happy to discuss with you if you would like to consult with us, if you'd like to have a call with us. I'm sure Neil will be posting our information. And yeah, that's what I'd like to mention about it.
No, I think that's great, and that's a great point that you make. What could the other options be, Michael, if the E2 visa is not the best option for them?
Yeah, so maybe somebody has a company in the United States that would like to hire them to. So maybe the person doesn't necessarily want to operate their own business, but maybe they're more interested in working for a company in the United States, more so in the role of an employee. Well, there's various immigration options for somebody to work as an employee for a particular company, such as the H-1B, the TN visa, and many others, the O-1 visa. There it could be a situation where somebody has a unique ability. They might have an extraordinary ability as a musician, or you name it. They might have an extraordinary ability in science or mathematics or athletics. There's a special visa to get somebody into the United States to work in that area of their extraordinary ability. Let's say somebody has a relationship with somebody in the United States, or has a child that's a US citizen, or a girlfriend, or a boyfriend, or whatever, what have you. There's, of course, many immigration options for people based on having a particular relationship with either a US citizen or a green card holder. So again, that's just to name a few. There's a lot of different immigration options out there, and so it's important to explore based on your unique circumstances and your particular situation to see what's best for you.
All right, best place people can find information on you, Michael. Where can they go?
They can check out our website. It's ashoorilaw.com, ASHOORILAW.com. We also are very active on YouTube, on TikTok. On YouTube, we're Ashoori Law as well. On TikTok, we're US Immigration Lawyers. Again, US Immigration Lawyers.
All right, thanks a lot, Michael. It was great information.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Neil.
You're welcome. You're listening and watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.